Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. President Donald Trump has hit his highest approval he's ever had as more Americans say that the U.S. is on the right track, more so than in 20 years. This according to the latest NBC News poll. President Trump also ordered the dismantling of the government-funded propaganda peddling media outlet known as Voice of America. The left is standing on their heads over this one. Appearing on Sunday Morning Future's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt accused Associated Press reporter Josh Boak of failing to see President Trump's long-term economic strategy, and again shows an example of the mainstream media's anti-Trump bias. And a SpaceX capsule delivered 4 astronauts to the International Space Station early Sunday morning to allow a pair of stuck NASA astronauts to return to Earth later this week. We have an update on that. Glad to have you in on this Monday. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
It was a weekend of golf while fighting terrorists on the other side of the world for President Trump this past weekend. He announced in a Truth Social post on Sunday that he had won a golf tournament at his club in Palm Beach County, Florida, noting that it would likely be his last, he said. The president said, "I just won the golf club championship, probably my last at Trump International Golf Club in Palm Beach County, Florida. Such a great honor. The awards dinner is tonight at the club." He said, "I want to thank the wonderful golf staff and all the many fantastic golfers that participated in the events. So much fun." Trump's big day on the golf course came a day after the White House shared photos with us of the president dressed in golf attire as he watched strikes on Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. President Trump is taking action against the Houthis to defend U.S. shipping assets and deter terrorist threats, the White House wrote on this was a post to X. He said, "For too long, American economic and national threats have been under assault by the Houthis, not under this presidency." According to the U.S. Central Command, it initiated a series of operations consisting of precision strikes against the Iran-backed Houthi targets across Yemen to defend American interests, deter enemies, and restore freedom of navigation. I mean, they have just wreaked havoc on that shipping lane. The Houthis have turned into international terrorists, and it has disrupted commerce. And we can't just allow these type groups to threaten commercial shipping through there. You and I receive a lot of products that come through that shipping lane. The Houthi-run health ministry in Yemen said that the strikes killed at least 31 people, according to the Associated Press. It was also a big weekend in space. A SpaceX capsule successfully delivered 4 astronauts to the International Space Station early yesterday morning, paving the way for 2 astronauts, NASA astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, to return to Earth after a quite extended mission. The pair have been on the International Space Station for 9 months. Now, can you imagine being stuck in space for this period of time? Now, actually, they haven't been stuck for 9 months. I forget how long they were there before they had problems and weren't able to return, but it's been a while. I mean, far beyond their originally planned 1-week stay. And this supposedly due to technical issues with Boeing's first astronaut flight. Well, NASA has decided to return the Boeing Starliner empty, allowing Wilmore and Williams to depart on the SpaceX capsule. This is pretty amazing to me. Did you happen to see any of it? Did you stay up late Saturday night? I guess it was just after midnight on Saturday, early Sunday morning, when they docked. Now, honestly, I didn't stay up to watch it. I have watched the video, though, and it's quite amazing. The crew 10 astronauts SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule docked at it's 12:04 a.m. On Sunday. This was about 29 hours after they launched from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew consists of NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers, Japanese astronaut Takuya Onishi, and Russian cosmonaut Kirill Peskov. They're scheduled to spend about 6 months aboard the International Space Station, assisting with scientific research and maintenance. Now, for the next few days, Wilmore and Williams will help orient the new arrivals before preparing to return home. They'll board another SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule that's been docked at the station since last year. Wilmore and Williams are set to depart on probably around Wednesday early morning, between 4 a.m. 5 a.m. Maybe they'll be back in in orbit in time to listen to Sunrise, Carolina. They'll depart along with NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbachev. Hague and Gorbachev arrived at the International Space Station back in September aboard a Crew Dragon capsule, which was left with 2 empty seats, specifically with Wilmore and Williams. The crew will splash down off the coast of Florida upon their return. Throughout their extended stay, Wilmore and Williams have been conducting scientific research and station maintenance. I just can't imagine being stuck there, knowing you can't come back home, or not at least when you want to. I'd love to know the details about food and that type of thing. I mean, what do you do in space? I know that it says that they've been researching and doing maintenance, but wow, that's a long time to be stuck in space. Speaking to reporters earlier this month, Williams expressed his excitement about returning home to see her family and pets, acknowledging the emotional toll on her loved ones. Well, of course. I mean, you go up expecting to be there, a week, 2 weeks or so, and you're there for months. She was quoted as saying, "It's been a roller coaster for them, probably a little bit more so than for us." Speaking of her family, of course. Former NASA astronaut Leroy Kao, appearing on Fox News, described the Crew 10 docking procedures as smooth and efficient, and it did look like it was just nothing to it. I mean, isn't it amazing? Think about this. And I'm old enough to remember, I was in elementary school when the first men walked on the moon, when they set foot on the moon. I remember we watched it from our classroom. And now we have people literally staying in an International Space Station for months. I was talking with family over the weekend. We're having lunch yesterday at the Newry General Store. Now, if you haven't been to the Newry General Store, you need to go. Newry is just over outside between Clemson and Seneca. It's an old textile mill. The mill itself has been renovated into condos. And what was the general store and post office has been renovated as well. And there's a great cafe grill type restaurant in the old store, and the post office has been renovated as well. But they have great food. It's a little bit on the unbeaten path, but it's well worth the trip, I promise you. So just a little sideline there. We had a great. But anyway, we were talking about the space station and about Elon Musk particularly, and we all agreed it will not surprise me. You know, Musk is one of his goals is to go to Mars, put someone on Mars. It will not surprise me if he's not able to accomplish that task. He's just that smart. He has the resources, and he's young enough to see it out. What do you think? Do you think in our lifetime that we will see someone on Mars? Love to get your comment. You can email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Just text me as well. But, and the other question that came up, Peg asked me this question, as far as the crew that went up to rescue the stranded astronauts. She asked, would I have gone on that mission? Would I have boarded that SpaceX capsule and flown to that International Space Station? And then she said, I'll tell you what, would you have done it for $5 million? Now, I probably would have done it for free, just for the opportunity. But I certainly would do it for $5 million. Would you? Would you get on a SpaceX capsule and fly into outer space and fly to the space station? I would. I love a challenge like that. I would jump on that, and especially if I'm paid $5 million. Email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Astronaut KO praised the mission's execution, noting that Wilmore and Williams are eager to complete the handover and return to Earth in the coming days. Well, I guess they would be. If you've been stuck that long, you're ready to come home, right? Hi, Joey Hudson here. You know, this spring there's a renewed energy and focus on efficiencies, and shaking up unhealthy habits don't serve us well. There's so much chatter about making America great again, but it starts in your home with you being the best, healthiest version of yourself. And PhD Weight Loss is doing their part, because for the first time ever, the first 11 callers get 2 free weeks added to your weight loss program. That is huge. PhD's out to prove that you don't need Big Pharma to reach your goals. It just creates dependency, not long-term change. Dr. Ashley Lucas researched weight loss trends for years and discovered a scientifically proven way to retrain your body to burn fat efficiently without hunger, extreme exercise, or dangerous medications. PhD clients watch their belly fat disappear, their energy skyrocket, cholesterol and blood pressure normalize without starving themselves. I lost over 30 pounds and I've never felt better. So call now and mention promo code Joey for my 2 weeks for free with my program. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has announced that she will not be attending the upcoming White House Correspondents Association's dinner. Leavitt criticized the association for monopolizing White House reporting and resisting the inclusion of new media outlets. You may remember that the White House recently invited new media outlets, like people like myself who do podcasts, local radio shows around the country, talk radio, and those who have traditionally not been given a seat in the White House press room. The annual dinner is scheduled for April the 26th. You may recall President Trump himself has refused to go some in the past. It will feature Amber Ruffin as the speaker. President Trump has had a very contentious relationship with the White House Correspondents Association, and he has not confirmed whether or not he will attend this year or not. We saw it happen in real time last week and yesterday. Speaking of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, again accused the Associated Press reporter Josh Boak of failing to see President Trump's long-term economic strategy. In a Sunday interview, days after he had sparred with her over tariffs during a press briefing, Leavitt's comments came after Tuesday's confrontation, if you will, when Boak asked about Trump's address at a business roundtable. This was the quarterly meeting that was slated to occur soon after this press meeting. He claimed that despite Trump's touting tax cuts during his latest BRT meeting in 2024, he's now pushing tax hikes, and he cited tariffs as being the culprit. Boak pressed further despite Leavitt's objections, saying, "I'm curious why he's prioritizing that over tax cuts." That spat, of course, escalated when Boak insisted that importers, not foreign companies, bear the brunt of tariffs, asking, "I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff?" Here's the exchange.
Sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have. They don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you're trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press.
Leavitt, of course, fired back, calling it insulting when for Boak to try to, quote, test her knowledge of economics and the decisions that Trump has made. Revisiting this spat yesterday, Leavitt called out the broader mainstream media for focusing on sensationalism rather than asking tough questions with honest integrity and journalistic curiosity.
Joining me now is the woman herself in the Sunday Morning Futures exclusive, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Caroline, thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to see you, Maria. Thanks for having me.
How would you characterize the quote-unquote resist and the challenges from, I guess, AP has been pushing back on your press conferences pretty often?
Sure. Well, first of all, with that individual reporter from the Associated Press who tried to test me on tariffs, he clearly fails to see President Trump's long-term economic strategy, which is to bring in so much revenue, so much wealth into our country through tariffs that we can give larger tax cuts to the American people to put more money back into their pockets. He clearly didn't understand that very simple idea. But as for the greater mainstream media's coverage, I think that example proves that they are continue to double down on their failing ways. They focus on sensationalism, on trying to get a viral moment rather than asking tough questions with honest integrity and journalistic curiosity, wanting to know the answers. They want to make a name for themselves. And that's why the trust in the mainstream media has fallen to record lows. And that's why at the White House, we are very proud of the changes that we have made to the briefing room and also to the press coverage of this president, welcoming in independent voices and new media who truly care about the truth, honesty, and accuracy.
I'm not sure he'll be challenging her again. You think? you think this Associated Press reporter, or any for that matter, is going to be challenging Caroline Leavitt? She knows, she's quick on her feet. She knows exactly what Donald Trump stands for. And look, they're going to learn probably the hard way, like this Associated Press reporter did. Kristi Noem announced the construction of a new 7-mile stretch of President Trump's border wall in Arizona. This over the weekend, a day after the Secretary of Homeland Security revealed that illegal crossings have plummeted. You ready for this? Since January 20th, 95% decrease under President Donald Trump's administration. The former South Dakota governor said that construction will begin on a fresh stretch of wall as part of her bid to make America safe again, in a video she shared from the border on her X account yesterday.
Everybody, I'm here in Arizona, and right at this spot, you can see where the border wall ends. As of today, we're starting 7 new miles of construction. We're going to continue to make America safe again.
President Trump and his administration continues pressing to make progress at the southern border. I mean, in just the first, 50 days or so, I guess now, illegal border crossing, decreasing 95%, as I mentioned a minute ago, under President Trump. Recent daily encounters dropping to some of the lowest numbers since the Border Patrol started tracking them. Secretary Noem was in Nogales in Santa Cruz County, Arizona, following reports that illegal crossings are now at levels not seen since 1967. That area is known as a highway for cartel smugglers who would use the vast open desert to traffic people and drugs, fentanyl, across the border from Mexico. Noem put the huge decrease down to the stricter enforcement policies under Trump, as well as the resumed border wall construction. Look, the construction of the wall in itself is going to be a deterrent, because these drug traffickers are going to see us building the wall, and they're not going to want to be anywhere close to it. The Mexican cartels, we're told, are becoming more desperate in response to the increased border security, because they see themselves being put right out of business, which they're going to be. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has arrested more than 32,000 people since President Trump took office January 20th. Almost as many as the total number of ICE arrests made under the Biden administration in the entire year of 2024. Let that sink in. Trump has arrested more than Joe Biden did in an entire year. That's because President Trump is serious about border security and about protecting and making our country safe again. Looks like we may have another major shakeup coming out of Washington, specifically out of Donald Trump's White House, as he just signed another executive order, this one to shut down Voice of America and its parent agency, the U.S. Agency for Global Media. Now, this is the government-funded news organization, if you want to call it that, if you really want to call it a news organization. It's been accused of pushing leftist propaganda and downplaying terrorist threats. It's getting the axe, because that's exactly what it's been doing. It's not an accusation, it's an actual truth. If you're wondering what's behind the move, well, it's simple. Trump and his team say that the Voice of America hasn't been the voice of America for a long, long time. It's been the voice of radical America. Senior White House official was very blunt, saying VOA has been out of step with the Americans for years. And Carrie Lake, the former news anchor and Arizona Republican firebrand who was tapped by President to run the VOA, just told agency employees to check their emails about their jobs. And guess what? Many of them are getting a pink slip. So what does this do? It eliminates the U.S. Agency for Global Media and Voice of America, which falls under that, to the minimum function required by law. Now, I guess Congress would have to change the law to totally eliminate the agency. Employees are being terminated. I'm sure there'll be lawsuits. 6 other government agencies are also being cut, including the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and the Minority Business Development Agencies. I'm not sure I've ever heard of some of these. So what's this all about? For years, conservatives have been very critical of the VOA for becoming a left-wing mouthpiece, because that's what they are. They've been funded by our tax dollars. We pay them to criticize our president and conservatism. I mean, here are just a few of the controversies. They downplayed Hamas violence. VOA avoided calling Hamas terrorists in its reporting. They just wouldn't call them terrorists. Even after the October 7th attack on Israel, they refused to call Hamas a terrorist organization. If that's not enough, they ran articles promoting ideas like systemic racism and leftist identity politics. They were very quick to use the term white privilege quite often. And critics claim that it acted like a PR arm for the Biden campaign back in 2020. Critics aren't the only ones claiming that. Yes, they were a mouthpiece for Joe Biden. It was like his personal PR firm that you and I were paying for. And last month, House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Brian Mast blasted the VOA for sanitizing Hamas when it failed to mention that Gazans were cheering as Hamas paraded dead Israeli hostages in coffins. That's the organization, that's the Voice of America that I think the Trump White House is right, the voice of radical America. So not surprising that the left is losing its mind over this. They're calling it an attack on press freedom and a threat to independent journalism. I don't think they're exactly independent journalists. You're being a bit sensational there on that. Because let's be real. This isn't about freedom of speech. The left doesn't care anything about freedom of speech, or at least not our freedom of speech. They would shut us down. They would shut conservative talk radio down tomorrow if they could. This is about stopping taxpayer-funded media from being used as a propaganda machine for the Democrats and the left. And here's where it gets a bit interesting. Elon Musk has jumped into the mix as well. He applauds the move, saying this is another win against government-funded disinformation. So what's next? Where does this head from here? As I mentioned, there'll probably be legal challenges. Everything Trump has done since January 20th has been challenged by a bunch of leftist groups. Employees, media watchdogs will likely sue to try to stop it. And they may get it stopped temporarily. They can probably find a left-leaning judge to do that temporarily. I think in the end, it's gone. I think if you are a Voice of America employee, and if you get that notification from Carrie Lake saying that you're pink-slipped, go ahead and brush off your resume and find another job, because you might hold on for a little while, but eventually that agency's gone. Democrats in Congress, they're going to try to block it. But again, with Trump in charge, that's going to be a tough sell. And with a Republican majority, and this is why it's so important for us to start working now for the midterm elections in 2026, because if we can build on that majority, we can have the votes to totally eliminate programs like this. As far as other government-funded media, Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia could be the next on the chopping block. So the big question is Trump right to shut this down? Do you agree with the left that this is an attack on free press, or is this what this is what it's really all about? They weren't free press to begin with. This is shutting down a leftist propaganda organization that you and I have paid for. And by the way, the American people are with Trump on this. The American people are with Trump all the way. Recent surveys indicate now get this, a decline in favorability ratings for the Democrat Party. They have reached a historic low because of these internal disputes and because of the disagreements and because of their constantly trying to put up a roadblock for what Donald Trump is doing for what you and I elected him to do. However, 3 months in, Trump has hit his highest approval rating. So think about that. The Democrat Congress has reached their lowest ratings. Donald Trump has hit their highest, but yet they're still arguing with us that he doesn't have a mandate. He hit the highest approval rating he's ever had as commander-in-chief, while more Americans say the country is on the right track than at any point since 2004 in this new poll. Now, guess who did the poll? And I'm sure it was painful for NBC News to release it. NBC News released the poll yesterday. The bad news is that Trump still has not won over a majority of Americans, and 54% said they disapprove of his handling of the economy, the first time he's lost a majority on that issue in NBC's poll. Even so, the survey found that voters generally feel Trump is bringing the right kind of change on the key issues, even tariffs. So, I get the economy part there. I get that people still aren't happy with the economy. Again, he has raised the expectations so high because he's off to such a quick start and so many other things have changed so fast. People are thinking that the economy is going to respond as quickly as possible. That's not quite going to happen yet. We got to give it some time. We got to give tariffs time to work. More, according to the poll, more Americans support his changes to trade policy, 41%, than oppose it at 38%. Now, that's a narrow margin, but still, more Americans think that he's on the right track with the tariffs. That's despite the stock market sell-off last week, which it hurt. Wall Street is struggling with Trump's decision on the 25% across-the-board tariffs on Canada and Mexico, as well as 20% tariffs on China, and who knows what else is coming. Last week was a bloodbath for investors. We've seen that happen before, though. So a little bit of pain for long-term gain. On many other key issues, according to NBC, voters felt the same way, with Trump's actions on the border being the most popular. 56% say that it was a positive change at the border. On government cuts, 47% said his changes are good, compared to just 29% who oppose it. And even on his handling of the Ukraine war and NATO, policies that he has received significant pushback on, more respondents said that his actions are good, 41% and 40% respectively, as opposed to his actions. NBC poll respondents also appear to be cutting Trump some slack on inflation a bit. 40% said his policies are having somewhat of a positive effect, compared to 30% who said they're giving a negative impact, or they're having a negative impact. Again, it's not going to happen overnight with the economy. 28% said that Trump's policies are not changing things at all. Those 28%, of course, the Democrats. This illustrates how the president remains a political leader in a very deeply divided country. His approval rating among Republicans, 90%. His figures among Democrats at a paltry 4%, which is expected. Now, if you take a look at that gap, it's the largest gap in approval ratings between a president's party and the opposition party over the last 80 years. Some 47% of voters in the survey approve of Trump, compared to 51% who disapprove. This is an all-time high in the poll. He previously hit 47% in 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic just turned our country upside down. NBC News findings mirrors most other polling, with the latest Real Clear Politics aggregate polls showing Trump at 48.2% approval rating on average. Trump's approval rating is significantly higher than where it stood at this point during his first term at 44%. And look, let's just be honest here. I don't know that anyone would argue with me, even some Democrats. Had COVID not come along when it had and destroyed our economy, put everyone on the unemployment line, Donald Trump would have been the most popular president we'd ever had. However, I think it was a blessing in disguise that he had those 4 years to prepare for this current term. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Wrapping up today's show, when are these rogue federal judges going to stop? Just hours after President Trump invoked a wartime law to target terrorist organization Trinda Araga, this was Saturday, a federal judge stepped in and ruled that the law could not be used to deport 5 Venezuelans and ordered the plane that they were believed to be on to return to the U.S. Now, what is at question here is the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which allows deportation of natives and citizens of an enemy nation without a hearing. And it's been invoked 3 times during the War of 1812, World War I, and again World War II. All Venezuelan citizens 14 years or older who are members of this gang are within the U.S. and are not naturalized or lawful permanent residents of the U.S. may be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies, according to the Trump proclamation. But hours before the proclamation was signed, a lawsuit was filed by the American Civil Liberties Union, Democracy Forward, and the ACLU of the District of Columbia, claiming that it could be used to deport any Venezuelan in the country, regardless of whether they are a member of this Trinda Araga. And this federal judge just jumped right in there. At a hearing Saturday afternoon, Chief U.S. District Judge James Boasberg of the D.C. Circuit granted a temporary restraining order preventing the deportation of these 5 who had already been in federal custody for 2 weeks. 2 planes that may have been en route to deport illegal immigrants were ordered returned by the judge. In response, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said, tonight a D.C. trial judge supported Trinda Araga, or is it Trinda Araga? You know who I'm talking about. Trinda Araga, terrorists, over the safety of Americans. This group is represented by the ACLU. This order disregards well-established authority regarding President Trump's power, and it puts the public and law enforcement at risk. She went on to say the Department of Justice is undeterred in its effort to work with the White House, the Department of Homeland Security, and all of our partners to stop this invasion and make America safe again. Now, I get back to my original question to you. When is this going to stop? They're Americans too, right? Do they not want their neighborhoods to be safe? Do they not want their family to be safe? Of course, the Trump administration has appealed the restraining order, alleging that it's improper to delay a presidential act before it's announced. Now think about that. They sued before Trump even announced that he had signed the order. What's that all about? How did they know what he was about to do? I mean, he's been saying he was going to do this, but timing-wise. Sky Perriman, president and CEO of Democracy Forward, wrote in a statement, the United States is not at war, nor has it been invaded. The president's anticipated invocation of wartime authority, which is not needed to conduct lawful immigration enforcement operations, is the latest step in an accelerating authoritarian playbook. Well, Perriman, let me tell you something. If you don't think we're at war, and if you don't think we are not being invaded, where are you living? What news are you watching? This is the most asinine thing I don't know which is worse. The fact that a federal judge is trying to stop this, or if we have American groups, and look, I'm no fan of the ACLU. I'm no fan. I've never heard of a couple of these organizations, but an American organization saying that our country has not been invaded at our southern border and to a lesser degree our northern border, and you don't think millions and millions of illegals coming into our borders that we haven't been invaded? What is wrong with you? An in-person hearing, we're told, will take place on its merits sometime today, later today. This move fulfills a campaign promise, of course, from an October rally when then candidate Trump, announced that he would use the law to combat these type groups. Tren de Aragua is designated a foreign terrorist group, or was designated a foreign terrorist group on February the 20th by the Department of State, has thousands of members, many of whom the White House says have unlawfully infiltrated the United States and are conducting irregular warfare and undertaking hostile actions against the United States. Colorado officials have confirmed that this gang occupied entire apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, saying that a special task force had to be established to combat its activity. So ACLU, you don't think that's an invasion? They took over entire buildings in an apartment complex and terrorized people? As of September 11, 2024, the Aurora Police Department linked the gang to nearly a dozen people, resulting in 8 arrests. According to a statement, 2 of the 8 individuals who were taken into custody were involved in a July shooting at one of the specific properties in the city that have been experiencing issues with this gang activity. White House said that the gang has continued to engage in mass illegal migration in the U.S. to further its objectives of harming United States citizens. Again, ACLU, you don't see this as an invasion. You don't see this as them organizing and they're sending money back and they're sending intel back to people trying to get more of their own into our country. Tren de Aragua operates in conjunction with a couple of other horrible groups. They are drug smugglers. They commit brutal crimes, murders, kidnapping, extortion, human, drug, and weapons trafficking, and the ACLU wants to defend them. Well, the good news is this, and I do have good news, because after this story broke yesterday, we learned that 250 accused gang members had been returned to El Salvador, where they were sent to a notorious mega prison, and this was in direct defiance of the federal judge's ruling. The flights included 238 members of the Venezuelan prison gang, Tren de Aragua, as well as 23 members of MS-13. Salvadorian President Bukele revealed Sunday morning. The president of El Salvador said that upon landing, the accused men were met on the tarmac by dozens of armed commandos and immediately transferred to the Terrorism Confinement Center, according to dramatic video that was posted by the El Salvadorian president. Now, again, and this is, I think it's funny, because I said earlier, I started this by saying, when will this stop? These deportations came just hours after this leftist judge, James Boasberg, tried to block the Trump administration from invoking the 18th Century Alien Enemies Act. These two flights to El Salvador were in the air already when the order came down, so the Trump administration decided the ruling did not apply because the planes were outside of U.S. airspace, according to Axios. Now, remember, last month, Secretary Marco Rubio met with Bukele, the Salvadorian president, and brokered a deal in which the El Salvador leader agreed to house convicted U.S. citizens or deported criminal illegal migrants of any nationality into the country's the worst prisons they have. With more than 15,000 prisoners, this facility is internationally famous for its horrendous conditions. It's well known to human rights groups as an overcrowded nightmare facility where brutality is rampant and inmates experience harsh treatment, many crammed into their cells nearly 24 hours a day. Now, the ACLU and some of these groups, they're going to say that we sent these people purposely to be treated inhumanely. The reports are that food is provided minimally, consisting of beans and pasta, and that rival gang members routinely fight to the death over food and water. I hate it for them. They had choices. They made bad choices, so we made the choice to get them out of our country, and good for Trump for defying that federal judge's order. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.